There is an island off the coast of Brazil where the ground moves. Not the whole ground all the time, but if you stood in the wrong spot on the forest floor and looked down, you would realize that some of what you thought were roots and fallen branches and dry leaves are not roots or branches or leaves at all. They are snakes, thousands of them. On this one small island in some places, there is estimated to be roughly one venomous snake for every square meter of ground. And not just any venomous snake. The snakes on this island carry a venom so strong that it can kill a human being in under an hour. And it does it in a way that is genuinely difficult to describe, because it doesn't just stop the heart or the lungs. It begins to dissolve you. It causes the flesh around the bite to die and break down. It makes you bleed internally, in your gut and in your brain, and it shuts down your kidneys all at once. And here is the part that should stop you. This place is real, it has a name, and the government of Brazil has made it illegal for you to go there. Not discouraged, not dangerous, but allowed. Illegal. The Brazilian Navy sealed this island off from the public almost 100 years ago, and in all that time, they have never let ordinary people back on it. The only human beings permitted to set foot there are a tiny number of scientists, and even they are only allowed to go under one strict condition, a condition that tells you everything about how dangerous this place really is. They are not allowed to land on the island unless there is a doctor in the boat. So the question is not really what is on this island. You already know, it's snakes. The real question, the one this whole story is about, is stranger than that. How did one small, ordinary-looking island in the Atlantic Ocean end up as the single most dangerous patch of ground on the entire planet? And why? When you finally understand the truth of it, is it not the island that should frighten you, but what we have done to it? This is Ilha da Queimada Grande, Snake Island. And almost everything you have heard about it is only half the story. If you stood on the coast of Brazil, near a town about 100 kilometers from São Paulo, and you looked out across the water on a clear day, you could actually see it. It sits about 33 kilometers offshore, a green ridge rising out of the Atlantic, and from that distance it looks like nothing at all. It looks like any other small forested island, the kind of place you might imagine having a beach and a few holiday homes and boats pulled up on the sand. It is small, only about the size of a large park, a little over 40 hectares. It has forest and rock and grass and a single old lighthouse blinking away on the high ground after dark. From the shore, it is beautiful. And it is one of the few places on Earth where a government has looked at a piece of its own territory and decided that no one is allowed to go there. To understand why, you have to understand what lives in that forest. And to understand that, you have to understand that this is not a normal snake, and this is not a normal number of snakes. The snake that lives on this island is called the golden lancehead. It is a type of pit viper, a relative of one of the most feared snakes on the South American mainland, a snake responsible for the overwhelming majority of deadly snake bites in Brazil. But the golden lancehead is not the mainland snake. It is worse. Its venom is estimated to be somewhere between 3 and 5 times more powerful than its cousin on the mainland, which already has a reputation as a killer. And this snake exists in exactly one place in the entire world. Not mostly this island, not originally this island, only this island. There is nowhere else on the planet you can find this animal, which means that this small ridge of forest in the Atlantic is the only home of one of the most lethally evolved predators on Earth. And there are thousands of them on it. The estimates vary, but researchers believe there are somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 golden lanceheads packed onto this single small island. Do the math on that, and in the densest areas, you arrive at a number that the human brain rejects on first hearing. Roughly one venomous snake for every square meter of ground, which means the mainland, 30 kilometers away, has none of these snakes at all. And this one small island has thousands. Islands do not simply fill up with snakes. Something had to make this happen, and what made it happen is a slow, quiet, 11,000-year-long accident. To understand Snake Island, you have to rewind a long way, to the end of the last ice age. Around 11,000 years ago, this island was not an island at all. It was a part of the mainland of Brazil, a hill connected to the rest of the continent by dry land. And the animals that lived on that hill were the same animals that lived everywhere around it, including snakes. Ordinary snakes, the ancestors of the lancehead, living on an ordinary piece of coast, doing what snakes do, hunting small animals on the ground. Then the world changed. The ice melted, the sea began to rise, and slowly, over many generations, the water crept up around that hill, covering the low ground, drowning the land bridge that connected it to the continent, until finally the hill was cut off completely and became an island, surrounded by kilometers of open ocean. And the snakes that happened to be on that hill when it happened were trapped. Except the snakes weren't supposed to survive at all. By every rule of nature, being sealed onto a shrinking island with no way off should have been a death sentence. Small islands kill species. The food runs out, the population crashes, and the animals vanish. And that is very nearly exactly what happened here. These snakes came within a whisker of dying out completely. What saved them didn't make them weaker though. It made them into something the mainland had never seen. And scientists now think something even stranger is happening to them, right now in our lifetime. The world's deadliest snake may slowly be becoming less dangerous to humans. I'll come back to why, because it's genuinely unsettling. But to understand it, you first have to understand how the island built this creature in the first place. On the mainland, a lancehead has plenty to eat. The ground is full of small mammals, warm-blooded prey moving around at snake level, easy to find and easy to catch. And the mainland snake hunts them with a simple, patient system. It strikes, injects its venom, and lets go. The bitten animal runs, but it doesn't get far before the venom drops it, and the snake follows the scent trail to its meal. Strike, release, track, eat. It works perfectly. On the ground, with mammals. But on the island, over those thousands of years of rising water, the ground mammals vanished. An island that size couldn't feed them, and one by one they disappeared, until the trapped snakes had almost nothing left to eat. They were starving toward extinction, except for one thing. Here was still one source of food arriving on that island, regularly, reliably, from the sky. And the snakes that could learn to catch it would survive. The ones that couldn't would die. And that single pressure over thousands of years built the monster. The one thing the island still had was birds. Not resident birds, but migratory birds, using the island the way travelers use a rest stop, landing in the trees to rest during their long journeys up and down the coast. And a bird is a very different kind of prey from a mouse. Because the old system, strike and release and track, does not work on a bird. If a snake bites a bird and lets it go, the bird does the one thing a mouse cannot. It flies away. It takes to the air and it is gone, and it dies somewhere out over the ocean, or in a tree a kilometer away, and the snake that bit it gets nothing. So the snakes on the island were under a brutal kind of pressure. To survive on birds, they could not afford to strike and wait. They needed to strike and hold, and they needed the bird to die almost instantly, in seconds, before it could open its wings and escape. And the only way to kill something that fast is with venom of extraordinary strength. So, generation after generation, the snakes with slightly stronger venom ate slightly more often and survived slightly better and had slightly more young. And the snakes with weaker venom slowly starved and vanished. And over thousands of years, that pressure pushed the venom of these snakes to a potency far beyond what any mainland lancehead ever needed. And here is the thing I promised you earlier, the detail that genuinely unsettles the scientists who study them. The venom is still changing. It is not a finished thing, sitting frozen in these snakes like a loaded gun. It is actively evolving right now, generation by generation, and in some of these snakes, it has begun to turn on the very system it came from. There is evidence the venom is becoming so specialized, so tuned to birds, that it is drifting away from what works on mammals at all. The most dangerous snake you have ever heard of may, in the long run, be slowly becoming less dangerous to us and more perfectly lethal to a sparrow. Evolution does not care what frightens us. It only cares what fills a stomach. The island did not fill up with monsters by chance. It manufactured them slowly with the simplest tools imaginable: hunger and time. And this is the thing most people never quite grasp about Snake Island. That terrifying venom, the venom that can kill a person in under an hour and dissolve the flesh around the wound, was never designed for us at all. It was designed for a small bird resting on a branch that needed to die before it could fly. We are just collateral. We are what happens when something built to kill a sparrow in 3 seconds sinks its fangs into a human leg instead. Now, given everything I have just told you, you would assume that no human being has ever been foolish enough to actually live on this island. But that is not true. For a short period, people did live on Snake Island, because in the late 19th and early 20th century, before the island was sealed off, the Brazilian Navy built a lighthouse on the high ground to warn ships away from the rocks. And a lighthouse in those days needed a keeper, a person to live there and tend the light and keep it burning through the night. So a keeper was sent to live on the most snake-infested island on Earth, and not just the keeper. His family went with him. And it is here that we arrive at the story you have probably heard, the dark legend at the center of Snake Island, the one that gets told in every version of this tale. I'm going to tell it to you the way it is usually told. And then I'm going to tell you the truth, because they are not the same thing. The story goes like this. One night, in the small house beside the lighthouse, the keeper and his wife and their children were asleep, and the snakes came in. They came in through the windows, which had been left open against the heat, slithering over the sills and dropping onto the floor, into a house full of sleeping people who had nowhere to run. The family woke to find the snakes already inside, and they ran out of the house and into the dark, trying to reach their boat on the shore. But the island did not let them go, because the snakes on Snake Island do not only live on the ground, they rest in the branches of the trees, coiled among the leaves, at exactly the height of a person's head and shoulders. And as the family ran through the forest in the dark, toward the water, they were bitten again and again by snakes hanging in the branches above them, and they never reached the boat. Every one of them died there, on the island, in the dark, somewhere between their house and the sea. Picture it for a moment, because this is the image that has kept this island famous for 100 years. A family woken in the black of night in the most remote place imaginable. No phone, no help, no boat close enough, running through a forest where death hangs at head height in the branches. The parents trying to shield the children. The lighthouse still turning overhead, indifferent, throwing its beam out over the water, while below it, the family it was meant to keep does not make it to the shore. It is the kind of story you do not forget. It is told in the coastal towns, and in every documentary, and in every article ever written about this place. There is only one problem with it. Nobody actually knows if it happened, because when you go looking for the hard evidence behind that story, the evidence is not there. There are no confirmed records of the keeper and his family dying that night. There is no documented death, no official report, no verified account from anyone who was there. What there is instead is a local legend, a story told and retold in the coastal towns, growing a little in the telling, the way these stories always do, until it hardened into something that sounds like established fact. And there is a second story just like it, about a fisherman who supposedly landed on the island to pick bananas, was bitten, made it back to his boat, and was found there later, dead in a pool of his own blood. And that story too has no confirmed record behind it. In fact, and this genuinely surprises people, there is no official record of anyone ever dying from a golden lancehead bite on that island at all. Not the keeper, not the fisherman, not a single documented death. Now, I want to be careful here, because this cuts both ways, And the honest answer is more unsettling than a simple yes or no. The absence of records does not mean nothing ever happened. People did live on that island, surrounded by thousands of the deadliest snakes on Earth, and it is entirely possible that someone, at some point, was bitten and died, and that it simply was never formally recorded in a time and place where such things often weren't. The legend may well have a seed of truth in it, but the version you have heard, the cinematic version, the family running through the dark being struck down one by snakes in the trees, that specific, detailed, terrifying story is exactly that. A story told so many times that it became true in the way that legends become true, by repetition and not by evidence. And the reason that matters, the reason I'm not just tearing down a good scary story for the fun of it, is that the real danger of this island was considered so genuine by serious people that they did something drastic about it. They shut the whole place down. At some point in the 1920s, the authorities in Brazil made a decision. The lighthouse was automated, converted to run on its own without a human keeper, so that no one would have to live in that house beside the light anymore. And the island was closed. The Brazilian Navy took control of access to Ilha da Queimada Grande and forbade the public from landing on it, and that ban has never been lifted. To this day, almost a century later, you cannot legally go to Snake Island. You cannot book a trip, you cannot pay a guide. If you are an ordinary person, there is no version of events in which you are allowed to set foot on that ground. And if you tried and were caught, you would be in serious legal trouble. The only people who are ever permitted to go are scientists, researchers studying the snakes, and they must apply for federal permission to do it. And even when they get that permission, there is that one condition, the one I mentioned at the very start, that captures the danger better than any statistic. By law, a doctor has to go with them. Because out there, 33 kilometers from the coast, on an island crawling with a snake whose venom can kill you in under an hour, there is no hospital, there is no help, there is no time. If you are bitten on Snake Island, your survival depends entirely on what is already in the boat that brought you. And even that might not be enough, because a bite from a golden lancehead is not a simple thing to survive. The statistics that get quoted are genuinely frightening. Estimates suggest that a person bitten and left untreated has around a 7% chance of dying. 7% might not sound enormous until you remember what the other 93% are surviving, which is not nothing, but rather severe tissue death, internal bleeding, kidney damage, and the slow dissolving of the flesh around the wound. And even with treatment, even doing everything right, a bite still carries something like a 3% chance of killing you. This is why the doctor is in the boat. This is why the island is closed. Not because of a legend about a lighthouse keeper, but because the thing that lives on that island is, by any measure, one of the most efficient killers evolution has ever produced. And there are thousands of them, and they are all in one place. So, by now, you have the picture of Snake Island that most people carry. A forbidden island, a ground that moves, thousands of flesh-dissolving vipers, a government so frightened of the place that it sealed it off from the human race. It is the story of a monster island, a place so dangerous that we had to wall it off to protect ourselves from it. And that story is almost completely upside down. Because here is the truth that turns this entire thing on its head. The island is not closed to protect us from the snakes. Increasingly, it is closed to protect the snakes from us. The golden lancehead, the terrifying, flesh-dissolving 1 per square meter monster of Snake Island, is in serious trouble. It is officially listed as critically endangered, which is the last category before extinct in the wild. The most lethal snake you have ever heard of is quietly disappearing, and the things killing it are not natural. For one, the Navy, over the years, burned away much of the island's vegetation, the very forest the snakes depend on, in order to keep the area around the lighthouse clear. That is even where the island gets its name, Queimada Grande, which means roughly the Great Burning. Disease has swept through the population, and then there are the poachers. Because a snake this rare, that exists nowhere else on Earth, is worth an enormous amount of money to the right kind of collector and to the black market that serves them. A single golden lancehead smuggled off that island can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. So people do go to Snake Island illegally, and they do it not to survive it, but to rob it, to carry off the very thing that makes it famous, one snake at a time, and sell it. The Forbidden Island, the one we imagine as a fortress holding a monster in, is actually more like a fragile, failing sanctuary, holding on to the last members of a species that exists nowhere else, while human beings burn its forest and steal its snakes and push it slowly toward disappearing forever. And that is the real mystery of Snake Island. Not whether the snakes will get us, but whether we can leave the single most dangerous place on Earth alone long enough for it to survive us. Because think about what would actually be lost, not a monster. An entire species, the only one of its kind, the strange and perfect end result of 11,000 years of isolation and hunger. A living record of what happens when the sea traps a handful of ordinary snakes on a hill and leaves them alone for longer than human civilization has existed. It is not evil, it is not cursed. It is just an animal that adapted brilliantly and terribly to an impossible situation and ended up so good at surviving that we decided we had to keep away from it. And now, the thing that cannot survive us is it. So the island stays closed. The lighthouse still blinks after dark, on a green ridge 33 kilometers from shore, alone, keeping watch over an island that no one is allowed to visit. And in the forest beneath it, in the branches and among the leaves, the last few thousand of the rarest, deadliest snakes on Earth are still waiting, still watching the sky for birds, exactly as they have for 11,000 years, doing the one thing they were built to do, surviving for now. So I'll leave you with the question that this strange, forbidden little island really asks, once you know the whole truth about it. We always assume we are the ones who need protecting, but sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is also the most fragile. So which one in the end is really the threat, the island or us? Tell me what you think in the comments and I'll read them. If this is your first time here, this is what we do, one story at a time. The ones that were never fully explained. So stay with us and I'll see you in the next one.